Securing a grade 7 or higher on language paper 2, question 3. So, this question is exactly the same question that appears on language paper 1, question 2. How does the writer use language to describe? Except it's worth 12 marks and not 8 marks. You do exactly the same though, okay? So you don't write more for this just because it's 12 marks. It's just the way the paper has been broken up into units. It might not say describe, it might say persuade or inform. It's usually describe though, and the same rules apply for this question. So, what goes wrong on this question? Well, there's two main ways that you can sort of get this wrong. Probably the biggest mistake is students making the wrong language choices that don't offer scope for grades 7 to 9. So when I say wrong, I don't mean they're wrong in the sense that the mark scheme says they're wrong. It's the judgment that you're making. So sometimes you can jump on something and think, oh, I'm going to write about that. But when you start to analyse it in the way you've been taught, what you say about it is actually really quite weak. And it's what you say about the choices that gets you the grade, not saying it's a simile or a metaphor or personification. And that's the second point, really, that people seem to think that if they put something really sophisticated in, like asyndactic listing or hyperbole, that they're going to get a really high score. Yes, it helps to name the technique, but again, it's this suggests, this symbolises bit that gets you the grade. Now, I wanted to show you an answer, part of an answer actually, that is the most typical kind of answer that you get when you're an examiner. So it's from last year's exam. How does the writer use language to describe the train crash? And on first reading, you can get lulled into thinking that this might be okay. In source A, the writer uses adjectives to describe the train crash. This is evident in the quote, all of a sudden there was a frightful jarring. This suggests the crash was not only scary, but annoying as it interrupted his sleep. The adjective frightful suggests that it was terrifying. So say the writer uses short sentences to describe his fantasy was shaken. This is evident in the quote, my little world was tilted drunkenly. Again, this suggests that his imagination or fantasy was now fading away, turning into a horrible, unsatisfying situation. This is a classic 5 out of 12. This is not anywhere close to what you need to be getting if you're going to go and get on a grade 7, because what it says about the quotes isn't true. The choices are poor. All of a sudden there was a frightful jarring. They've not dealt with the suddenness of it. They say frightful suggests that it was terrifying. It just really doesn't do anything there. There's no trying to layer it up, really. It's just saying the same thing. Don't talk about sentences, short sentences. I mean, that one isn't particularly short. My little world was tilted drunkenly. You know, it's the drunkenly part of the adverb there that's the bit that you can do something with. This is a candidate who thinks because they spotted a short sentence and adjectives, they'll just jump on those choices. And this is what probably, for me, is the biggest mistake that I see. The choices are so weak, they just don't have enough to say about them. So let's have a look at the success criteria then for a grade 7. On language paper 2, more often than not, there is some kind of semantic field. So remember, a semantic field is a technique often used by writers to keep a certain image persistent in the reader's mind. We've had it over past years. We've had war, attack, you know, all lots of words to do with bullets and guns and cannons and firing. We've had the power of the sea, the force of the sea, the idea that the sea had control, lots of words to do with control and power. When you spot a semantic field, It's good to then make 3 choices that link, because it allows you to give a more conceptual analysis. This show, suggest, symbolise model does enable you to get to that grade 7. But it's the third bit. It's how symbolic something is. Yeah, if it can represent sort of a wider meaning, that is often what takes you high in the mark scheme. So this is an example of a passage that you typically get on Language Paper 2, question 3. All of a sudden there was a frightful jarring, followed by a crash. I sat up in my berth. From the rack above me, my heavy suitcase was cannoning down, catching me with a fearful force on either kneecap. This is the end of the world, I thought, and in addition, they had broken both of my legs. My little world was tilted drunkenly. The window showed me nothing except a few fields. It was 6 o'clock. I began to dress. I felt very much annoyed. But I climbed out of the carriage into a refreshingly spectacular world, and the annoyance passed. The Trans-Siberian Express train sprawled foolishly down the embankment. The mail van and the dining car, which had been in front, lay on their sides at the bottom. Behind them, the 5 sleeping cars, headed by my own, were disposed in attitudes which became less and less grotesque, until you got to the last, which had remained primly on the rails. 50 yards down the line, the engine, which had parted company with the train, was dug in, snorting steam on top of the embankment. It had a defiant and naughty look. It was definitely conscious of indiscretion. So, best choices in that then. Your lower candidates are going to go with things like I felt annoyed, it was the end of the world. Easy things on first reading, but very hard to offer a layered analysis. Semantic feels, personification, metaphors are often where it's at, okay? So some of the best choices that I saw from the summer for this question were the personification of a defiant and naughty look. You know, the train overall is up to mischief, and you can see that with some of the language. There's almost like a childlike nature to it, in that it sprawled foolishly. The adverb drunkenly, we can get the connotations from these words. The alliteration, the fearful force. There's a little bit of sort of military idea, and that's carried through into the metaphor of the cannon too. Not the best would be the hyperbole, end of the world. This suggests that it's the end of the world. What do you do with that? It's very difficult. Short sentences. I sat up on my bed. I felt very much annoyed. Again, very hard to write about. Even the onomatopoeia of crash. You know, a crash is a crash. Yeah, it sounds serious, but I'm just not sure how you layer that up. So choices are key. So this is an extract from a grade 7 response. Obviously, the full answer would be usually 3 paragraphs long, but this is how they get to a grade 7 in just 1 paragraph. The writer creates a semantic field of a military attack through the language used to describe the train crash, the hyperbole. My heavy suitcase cannoned down to describe the impact of the train crash shows the force at which it moved. The verb cannon suggests the writer's sense of being victimised. As he described the dislodgement of the suitcase, symbolically, it evokes an image of his own possession being used as a weapon against him. That's clear effect of language. At least 7 out of 12. If the other 2 paragraphs follow that model, at least 9 out of 12. More than enough to stay on track for a grade 7+. Notice it follows what you've been taught. Shows, suggest, symbolise. If we replace that quote with this is the end of the world, we wouldn't be able to do that. We wouldn't be able to do show, suggest, symbolise. We'd really struggle. So don't get obsessed with technique. Focus on quotes that you can unravel to 3 layers. So I'm going to leave you with a pupil practice, okay? You've got an extract there that is rich in description about the city of Verona. I would advise you to read it. Spend 5 minutes looking at all the choices. You might underline 6 or 7. Narrow it down to the best 3 that allow you to offer that show, suggest, symbolise. See if there's a semantic field in there. If there is, try to hang your analysis round that. Don't spend more than 15 minutes on an answer when you time yourself, because answers you must be able to do under time conditions. So you're never looking for perfection, you're looking as good as what you can do in 15 minutes. Okay, and I'll leave you with that.